All right, let's talk about something that's jumped way beyond the IT department and landed squarely in the C-suite, cybersecurity. But we're going to look at it from a totally different angle today, one that shows why protecting a company isn't just about firewalls and software anymore. It's actually become a critical mission for human resources. Let's get into it. So to really get why this is so important, let's start with a number that'll kind of make your jaw drop. In 2023 alone, cybercrime cost us an estimated $12.5 billion. That's a mind-boggling amount of money, and it's being driven by attacks that are just getting smarter and sneakier every single day. You know, we tend to think of cyber attacks as these purely technical problems, a flaw in the code or a server getting hacked. But the data, it tells a much more human story. A full 22% of breaches come from direct human error. And when you add in system failures where a person was still part of the problem, that number shoots up to almost half of all breaches. It tells us something huge. Our biggest vulnerability isn't our software, it's us. And that really gets to the heart of the issue here, what we call the human security risk. You can have the best, most expensive security tech in the world, but at the end of the day, your defenses are only as strong as the people who are using them. Security experts are incredibly blunt about this. As this quote says, people are the biggest risk factor. But here's the thing, it's not about pointing fingers or placing blame. It's about empowerment. And that second part of the quote is the absolute key. Training is how you turn that risk into a massive strength. Now, the main weapon criminals use to exploit that human element is something called social engineering. This isn't about hacking computers, it is literally about hacking people. Attackers use deception, they use psychology to trick an employee into giving up a password, clicking a malicious link, or even wiring money. It preys on trust, on our instinct to be helpful, and a false sense of urgency. So, if the problem is fundamentally a human one, then who in an organization is best equipped to solve it? Well, this is where a very unlikely hero steps into the spotlight: the HR department. They are, whether they know it or not, on the front lines of this new battle. I know what you might be thinking. Cybersecurity? An HR issue? Really? Isn't that IT's job? It's a fair question, but let's break down exactly why HR's role has become so unbelievably critical. For starters, think about the data they protect. HR is sitting on a treasure trove of sensitive info. We're talking social security numbers, bank account details, home addresses, you name it. That makes them a prime target. But it goes deeper. They're the bridge between IT's technical roles and what employees actually do every day. They're the ones responsible for turning a security policy into a security habit. And get this isn't just a good idea anymore. In many industries, it's the law. Big regulations like HIPAA in healthcare or PCI DSS for credit cards require regular security awareness training for all staff. And guess who's on the hook for managing that compliance across the whole company? Yep, HR. Getting this wrong can lead to some seriously massive fines. To make this all feel a little less abstract, let's actually walk through the anatomy of a very common and very clever attack that goes right after the HR department. We're going to use a classic that has tricked countless companies, the W-2 phishing scam. It is a perfect and frankly a terrifying example of social engineering in the wild. Okay, so picture this. It all starts so simply. An email lands in an HR or payroll employee's inbox. It looks like it's from the company's CFO, and the subject line is screaming urgent. The email says they need copies of every single employee's W-2 tax forms, and they need them right now for some kind of secret audit. The attacker is betting that the employee will be too flustered by the urgency and the authority of the CFO to stop and think. But of course, you know where this is going. The email is a complete fraud. It's a trap. If that HR employee hits reply and attaches those documents, they've just handed a criminal the keys to every employee's financial life. With one click, hundreds of people are now at risk for identity theft. It's devastating. And this is exactly what training prepares you for. A trained employee would immediately see the red flags. They'd notice the sender's email address is something weird, like a generic Gmail account instead of the company's real domain. That frantic, high-pressure tone, that's another classic giveaway. Training gives people the confidence to pause, to verify the request through a different channel, and to shut the whole attack down before it even starts. And phishing is just one piece of the puzzle. Just think about HR's daily workflow. They're opening resumes from strangers all day long, perfect vehicles for hiding malware. They manage credentials to payroll systems. And the threats aren't always from the outside. A simple mistake, an accidental data leak, or even a disgruntled employee can cause just as much damage. Okay, so we've laid out the threat pretty clearly. It's real and it's scary. But let's flip to the positive side. Let's talk about the solution and why investing in security awareness training is probably one of the smartest business decisions you can make. Let's just look at the raw economics of it. The average cost of a single data breach these days is over $4 million. That number covers everything from the investigation and legal fees to the damage to your company's reputation. Now, when you put that number up against the relatively small cost of a good training program, well, the math isn't hard. It's a no-brainer. Training is an investment that pays for itself 1,000 times over. And the return on that investment is massive. We're talking about fewer security incidents, period. That means preventing all those crazy costs and protecting the trust you've built with your customers. And it goes beyond just checking a legal box. It creates something way more valuable, a workforce that feels empowered and confident knowing they're part of the defense. But here's the real key. This can't just be a once-a-year boring training session. For this to really work, it has to be about building a lasting culture of security. And HR, they are the architects of that culture. So how do you actually do it? Well, it starts on day one. You weave security training right into the onboarding process for every new hire. Then you make the training actually relevant to people's jobs. What a developer needs to know is different from what sales needs to know. Of course, this all has to come from the top. Leadership has to walk the walk. And you should reward people for doing the right thing, like spotting a phishing attempt. When you do all this, security stops being an event and just becomes part of how you operate. When HR really takes the lead here, the transformation is incredible. You can finally stop seeing your employees as your biggest weakness or your weakest link. With the right training, the right support, and the right culture, they become your organization's strongest, most alert, and most powerful first line of defense. And that really leaves us with one final question for every single leader out there. When you look at your company right now, is your workforce a potential liability just waiting for an attack to happen? Or are they your strongest, most active defense? The answer is entirely in your hands.